The frost clings to the grey stone walls of Kilkee House on the morning of February 15th, 1874, a cold, biting reminder of the Kildare spring. Inside, the air is a thick soup of damp wool, sputtering beeswax, and the low, rhythmic murmur of a nurse tending to a newborn with startlingly sharp blue eyes. Ernest Henry Shackleton draws his first breath in a room defined by Quaker silence and Irish stubbornness, inheriting a legacy far heavier than the blankets wrapped around him. Outside, the landscape is a patchwork of sodden fields and defiant hedgerows, uneven, resilient, and beautiful. But inside, the house is ruled by the moral rigour of a family that has always navigated the edges of establishment. He is born into a lineage that valued the schoolroom over the sword, a tradition of quiet rebellion that saw the Shackletons teach the marginalised when the law demanded they be forgotten. The boy's heritage is not merely a matter of geography. It is a philosophy etched into the very soil of the village of Ballitore. Here, his ancestor Abraham Shackleton founded a school that became a beacon of broad-mindedness in an era of draconian restrictions. While the penal laws sought to crush the Catholic majority, the Shackletons, Quakers, opened their doors, educating the likes of Edmund Burke and the future Cardinal Cullen side by side with Protestant gentry. This was the environment that shaped the young Ernest. A world where authority was questioned, character was the only true currency, and the survival depended on the strength of the community one built around themselves. Even as a child, he is a voracious reader, consuming tales of adventure that pull his mind far beyond the rolling fields of Kildare, though the pragmatic survivalist spirit of his father Henry remains the family's grounding force. By 1880, the family is walking the soot-stained cobbles and the grand, indifferent facades of Dublin, while his father hunches over medical texts at Trinity College as a student. Ernest wanders the narrow lanes near Marlborough Road, absorbing the city not as a map, but as a series of human rhythms. He watches the sluggish, dark flow of the canal waters and the subtle tension of a city on the edge of agrarian unrest, where the 1882 assassination of Lord Frederick Cavendish in Phoenix Park hangs like a heavy, cold mist over the Anglo-Irish gentry. In 1884, the family is eventually swallowed by the yellow fog and crushing crowds of London, a move driven by a search for better prospects and an unease about the family's place in an increasingly volatile Ireland. Yet even in this metropolis, he keeps a mental map of Kildare-born senses, a geography of low winter suns that will later guide him across the most hostile terrain on earth. At 16, the salt spray of the South American sun replaces the dust of the schoolroom as he signs on as a cadet in the Merchant Marine. The world becomes a place of creaking timbers and the raw rhythmic labour of hauling rope against a screaming gale aboard the square-rigged Hockton Tower. He learns that the sea, much like the Irish soil of his birth, is indifferent to titles, but deeply attentive to competence. Amid the swaying hammocks, he begins to read the men around him with the same precision he uses to read the stars, noting who cracks under cold and who laughs to mask fatigue. It is here, far from the polished corridors of the Admiralty, that he realises leadership is an act of constant, quiet observation before it is ever an order. The year 1901 brings the sterile smell of polished brass and the rigid, frozen hierarchy of Scott's Discovery expedition. The ship is a floating piece of the British Empire, a microcosm of rules and ranks that feels stifling to a man of Shackleton's quick Irish humour and uncanny timing. He treats the stoker with the same regard as the scientist, a trait that earns him the devotion of the crew but the mounting suspicion of Robert Falcon Scott. When he is eventually sent home in 1903, ostensibly for his health, he carries a quiet vindication. The men trust him not because he commands, but because he understands. He has seen the fragility of the stiff upper lip and knows that a leader's true strength lies in the bonds he forges in the mess deck, not the orders he barks from the bridge. The Nimrod expedition of 1907 becomes a ritual of transformation, where strategy is stripped down to its most pragmatic. Pushing farther south than any human has before, he beats the imperial records, but refuses to sacrifice his men to the altar of a flag. When he writes to his wife Emily that he would rather be, and I quote, a live donkey than a dead lion, it is the voice of a Ballitore schoolroom speaking through the Antarctic wind. A leader's glory, he decides, is not found in the height of the mountain climbed, but in the number of sleds inspected and the steady, measured distribution of its final rations. Upon his return, he is knighted by the king, yet he frequently and loudly tells audiences, I am an Irishman, using his newfound celebrity to reclaim an identity that London tried to file away as merely British. Then comes the Endurance in 1914, where the white silence of the Weddell Sea becomes a theatre for the ultimate test of his Kildare-born soul. Side note here, the Endurance is the name of a ship. As the ice groans and splinters the ship's hull like dry kindling, Shackleton stands on the floe, his attention as sharp as a needle on the dial. He listens to the cadence of the men's voices, noting the one who has grown too quiet to be safe. He marshals them into routines of mundane chores and evening songs, ensuring the crew's mental survival mirrors their physical. To his men, he is simply the boss, a title conveying affection and familiarity rather than distant authority. When he launches the James Caird into the hurricane-tossed maw of the Southern Ocean, he brings with him the Kerryman Tom Crean and the cheerful Timmy McCarthy, relying on a backbone of Irish grit to achieve the impossible. His decision to take Crean and McCarthy is not random. It is a calculated bet on a specific brand of resilience. Crean, the giant from Anniscall, is a veteran of the ice who carries a calm that defies the elements, while McCarthy's optimism is what Shackleton called a mental tonic that he deemed essential for the 800-mile voyage in an open boat. For 17 days, they battle waves the size of cathedrals and temperatures that turn their clothes into suits of ice armour. Every course steered by Worsley and every ounce of water bailed out by the crew is a testament to a leadership style that prioritised the man next to you over the glory of the mission. By the time they reach South Georgia and traverse its mountainous interior, Shackleton has transformed a total disaster into the greatest survival story in maritime history. The years after the Antarctic are a messy human struggle against the mundane. Away from the ice, he is a man of tobacco smoke, unpaid debts, and desperate failed business adventures. He is a walking disaster on dry land, haunted by a restlessness that only the call of the wild can soothe. Yet even in his financial wreckage, the Antarctic remains a constant, a place where the rules were clear and his leadership was absolute. He dies aboard the ship The Quest at South Georgia on January the 5th, 1922, a heart attack claiming him in the place he loved the most. At his wife's request, he is buried in the Grytviken cemetery, his heart left among the ice he had first dreamed of as a boy in Kildare. Today, in the 300-year-old town hall of Athy, the Shackleton experience rises as a glass iceberg, reclaiming the man for the soil that birthed him. Reopened in 2025 after a massive redevelopment, the museum houses the world's largest collection of his memorabilia, including the cabin from the Quest where he took his final breath. Visitors move through the immersive environments that recreate the sinking Endurance, a journey designed to make one feel the cold, the pressure, and the desperate necessity of character. It is a reclamation of history through place, a reminder that the Viking with a mother's heart was, first and always, a son of Kildare. From the schoolrooms of Ballitore to the frozen wastes of the south, his life remains a demonstration that heroism is not a rank, but a practice and preserved devotion to the lives we carry with us. Thank you for listening to the History and Heritage podcast. If you have any suggestions on who you think I should cover, tell me. And regardless, comment under this on Instagram or wherever you see this, or on Spotify itself, where I believe you can also comment. On that note, thank you and goodbye.